Hey guys, it's Jeffrey Gurian here for Comedy Matters TV. I'm probably a few minutes early. This is the first time I'm doing this YouTube live thing. So many people have been telling me that I should do this, and because I have a million stories about comedy and the comedy world going back more than would even admit, decades. And so anyway, I signed up. I guess I'm streaming. I don't know. I'm probably just talking to myself, but I guess I'm supposed to publish this afterwards. Anyway, hopefully this will be the first of many uh, tapings that I do, live streams, and we're going to be talking about, and I hope to be answering questions that people have about comedy and the comedians that I've had the honor of working with. Uh, Ron Bennington from SiriusXM, where I was a regular for 2 years, says that I'm the only person he knows that knew the greats of yesteryear, like Jerry Lewis and Milton Berle and Henny Youngman and all those guys from that age, as well as Rodney Dangerfield, Joan Rivers, Richard Belzer, Gilbert Gottfried, all those guys from that era, Andrew Dice Clay. I'm one of the few guys that ever wrote for Andrew Dice Clay. And he announces that when we're out or when he's on the radio. He says it very openly, and which is really fantastic. And the young guys like Nick Kroll and John Mulaney, and even newer guys like Mark Normand and Andrew Schultz, Chris DiStefano, whose podcast I did fairly recently. So I'm so happy to say that they're all friends of mine, and I'll be talking about my experiences in the comedy world that go back to the day, and things like I'll be answering questions like about Patrice O'Neill, for instance. I was Patrice's co-host on the Black Phillip show. It started out with Patrice and Dante Nero, and then Patrice brought me on as the third co-host, which was one of my greatest honors. There's a video on my Comedy Matters TV channel of the phone call that Patrice made to me the night that we did our first Black Phillip show. I was asleep already. He called me at 4:05 in the morning because he said he couldn't wait to tell me how much he enjoyed doing the show. And he invited me to do a show, just him, just he and I together. And he was so humble that he even said to me, and you'll hear it if you listen to this recording on my channel. He even said to me, I don't want to assume anything, as if I might not have wanted to do it. I would have done anything to do a show with Patrice because I love the man. And to show you how the love goes on for Patrice today, even, you know, recently, a couple of months ago, I guess, Bill Burr did the 10th annual uh, Patrice O'Neill benefit at City Center. I think it holds 3,000 people. It was another sold out event. I've been going every year. And the lineup was amazing. And Dice was the surprise guest. Dice did a special thing. Rich Voss was the host as usual. And it was an incredible lineup of comics. But everyone was really thrilled to see Dice. And Jon Stewart came out, and I don't even remember the whole lineup, but it was a really pretty amazing evening. And I still I still get emails from guys. We did that show in 2008, and believe it or not, I still get emails from guys telling me how much they got out of the show and thanking us for the information that we put out. I went to Japan in 2019, and I did a couple of comedy shows while I was over there. And when I got off stage, a guy came over to me, a Japanese guy from Japan came over to me, and he said he was so excited because he was a big fan from the Black Phillip show. I couldn't believe it. His name was Devin, and I said, we have to take a picture together. And I do that whenever people stop me in the street. Just happened a couple of days ago near my building. A guy's like, Jeffrey? I was like, yes. And I said, and I'm the one who suggested, I said, we have to take a picture. Two brothers from Africa stopped me down near the village underground and I'm not calling them brothers because they were black. They were truly brothers. They were really brothers. They came from Africa. They were fans of the show. I went to Skankfest. Two guys from Ireland stopped me. They were fans of the show. So the love for Patrice goes on, and I hope he knows. I'm of the belief that all these people are still watching over us, and I hope he knows how popular he still is. He was an amazing guy. Patrice was a comedy philosopher, not even just a comedian, but a comedy philosopher. He had his own point of view, and he made it very clear what that was. So we could be talking about that. We could be talking about any of my 8 books. This book in particular, for comedy fans, called Make 'em Laugh, which was the history of the comic strip. The full title is 35 Years of the Comic Strip, the Greatest Comedy Club of All Time. And so at the time I wrote it, it was 35 years, but that was a while ago because the club opened on June 1st of 1976. So that's 86, 96, 2006, 2016. That's 47 years ago that that club opened. Richie Tinkin was the owner and the founder of the club, and he gave me the honor of writing the book with the foreword by Chris Rock. And to give you an idea of who's in the book, I sat with each of these people, most of them at the strip. Most of them came in to be interviewed. Chris Rock, who, as I said, wrote the foreword to it and is also in the book with an interview. Jerry Seinfeld, Billy Crystal, who is one of the few people who I went to his office in Beverly Hills to do his interview. And I'm going to be seeing Billy tomorrow night at the 92nd Street Y. They're doing a showing of his hit Broadway show, Mr. Saturday Night, and he's being interviewed by Bette Midler. So I get to cover all the shows, the comedy-related shows at the 92nd Street Y, and I'll be there tomorrow night, which is very exciting for me. In this book, there's actually a picture of me and Billy. Let me see if I could find it. Wasn't prepared to show this, but there's a picture of me and Billy, and he's pointing to his teeth. Oh, here it is. If you can see the picture, he's pointing to his teeth because many years ago there was a rumor that I used to be a dentist, and the rumor started the day I graduated from dental school. And Billy's manager was a man named Jack Rollins, and Jack Rollins thought that Billy should play me in a sitcom about a dentist who wanted to be in show business, specifically in comedy. And at the time, Billy was engaged in so many different shows, and he wasn't free to do it. And the project never happened, but I got to meet Billy, and he remembered when I interviewed him for this book, so he took a picture pointing to his teeth. Who else is in this book? Colin Quinn, Susie Essman, Gilbert Gottfried, who unfortunately we lost this year, Paul Reiser, Ray Romano, Paul Provenza, Jim Gaffigan, Lewis Black, Judah Friedlander, Larry Miller, George Wallace, Jeffrey Ross, Jim Brewer, so many, Lisa Lampanelli, on and on. They're all in here. So there's amazing stories. Uh, After doing that book, I kind of became a comedy historian, having to learn so many people's stories and sit with them. And then just recently, I had the honor of being put on the cover. I'm officially a cover girl on Sutton Place magazine. They asked if I would be their New Year's person for the new edition of Sutton Place magazine. And it was a really cool story. There's me with one of my famous balloons, part of my happiness series. And it talks about my books. I have 5 books on comedy and 3 on happiness. And got some cool pictures with me and Kevin Hart and D.L. Hughley and Jerry Seinfeld and Amy Poehler and Amy Schumer. And even women not named Amy are in there. And Tiffany Haddish. A lot of fun stuff. We can even talk about the jacket that Nick Kroll and John Mulaney made for me when they did their Broadway show, the Oh Hello show. They didn't know, well, during the show, they referenced Curtis Sliwa from the Guardian Angels, who recently ran for the mayor of New York City. And Curtis Sliwa has been a friend of mine for more than 30 years. I actually was his dentist at one time. He doesn't mind me saying that. He says it all the time. And they talked about him in the show, and they made me this special jacket that was an exact replica of the Guardian Angels, but mine says Gurian Angels, and it's got the emblem, the Gurian Angels Safety Patrol, and so they had me wear this to the opening of their Broadway show. This is one of my greatest mementos, and so one night, as a surprise, I brought Curtis Sliwa to the show. They didn't know that I knew him even, and I showed up with him, and he wore his Guardian Angels jacket, and I wore my Gurian Angels jacket. And the guest that night who received too much tuna, which is one of my other big honors, I'm the very first person to be pranked with too much tuna on Comedy Central. It actually went viral. It's got well over 1 million views of me getting pranked with a very big tuna sandwich. And so that night, Fred Armisen was getting pranked, and Nick told me that it had always been Fred's dream to meet Curtis Sliwa. So it was very cool that I was able to bring him. And so again, I have nothing prepared for this particular live stream. It's my first time. I have no idea. I'm probably just talking to myself. I don't think anybody else may be on here with me. But hopefully that will change. I don't know if YouTube, what do you call it? If they promote these things, if they let people know that we're going live, or if I'm supposed to do that. But I'm coming up on 6,000 followers. I have one video recently. I have 580 videos on my channel, videos that I've shot over the years in all different places, up at Just for Laughs, the biggest comedy festival in the world. Every year, I get to cover the red carpet. Last year was the 40th anniversary. As I said, it's the biggest comedy festival in the world and the best attended comedy festival in the world, the most prestigious. And last year was the first year that Paul Ronco wasn't running the festival. And I went up, as I always do. I brought my VIP pass from 1992. They think that I might be coming up one of the longest. And covered the red carpet for the Just for Laughs awards. Every year they give out special awards. So last year, Amy Schumer won for Comedy Person of the Year, and she skipped the entire red carpet. She would only talk to me, she said. So at the party afterwards, we shot a cute little video, which is on my YouTube channel. And the video that's been blowing up lately, which is really crazy, it's getting about 500 views an hour, is a video that I did with Robert Klein. When I was on the Ron and Fez show on Sirius XM, I was a regular for 2 years, and I brought on more than 40 special guests, from Trevor Noah and D.L. Hughley to Artie Lang and Colin Quinn and Susie Essman and Lisa Lampanelli, and even actors like Danny Aiello and Tony Danza, all friends, and I brought them on the show. So I brought Robert Klein on one day, and at the end of our broadcast, we sat in this little room so I could do a little video with him, and he told me some great stories about Rodney Dangerfield. And I don't know how it happened, but within the past month, that video just blew up, and people are loving it. And night and day, it's got hundreds of viewers each hour, which is amazing to me. And in the past week alone, I got more than 1,000 subscribers. So if comedy is your thing, if you're interested in comedy or you want to interact with me in any way, I hope you'll subscribe to the channel. There's so much content. People say nobody has more comedy content than I do. They call me the Nardwar of comedy, which is kind of a strange thing. But I shoot the videos backstage. I'm connected to all the clubs in New York. I have access to all the clubs, and fortunately, all the club owners are friends of mine. And so when something special is happening, like I've been a comedy journalist since 1999. That's when I started Comedy Matters. It was part of a zine in those days. If you remember what a zine was, I don't even know if they use that term anymore. And then people started saying, "Why don't you do videos?" So I started doing videos, and that's when Comedy Matters TV was born. And so I shoot them backstage in the green room, on the red carpet, even in the street. No matter where I am, if I run into somebody, these days it's easier because you can even use your phone. Last week I was with Jim Gaffigan at the 92nd Street Y, talking about his new role in the Peter Pan and Wendy movie. He got the part of Smee, who's Captain Hook's right hand man. And I said, he should have been his left hand man because his left hand was the one he lost to the crocodile. And so silly. But anyway, it's ridiculous trying to do jokes on online, right? It's like trying to do comedy on Zoom. You know what that's like, doing comedy on Zoom? Doing comedy on Zoom is like standing on a highway and yelling out jokes to passing cars. That's how effective it is. It's like, hey, have you heard this one? Zoom. I think that's where they got the name Zoom from. Anyway, I'm running out of things to say because I'm not sure where I want to go with this. This is like a very, this is an intro. And I did a comedy podcast. I actually had a Comedy Matters TV podcast from the stage of the comic strip. Richie Tinkin, who unfortunately also left us a year ago, March, I believe it was, who was a very influential man. I mean, he managed Eddie Murphy for the first 11 years of his career, and he discovered Chris Rock, and he managed Colin Quinn and Adam Sandler. Colin Quinn was a bartender at the comic strip, but then they made him quit because he wanted to perform, and you couldn't be a worker and a performer at the club. So he had to quit his job as a bartender. But Richie Tinkin was an iconic figure in comedy. And we actually recently also lost Rick Newman, who opened Catch a Rising Star. And in my book, Make 'em Laugh, there's an interview with Rick Newman. I brought him. He opened the second comedy club in this country. Bud Friedman opened the very first comedy club, the Improv, in 1963. And it wasn't strictly a comedy club. It wasn't strictly a comedy club. In those days, it was like a coffee, not a coffee shop. Like Broadway stars would come in, there'd be singers, there'd be musicians, and then there'd be comedians. And after a couple of years, he realized that most people were coming for the comedy. And he eliminated the other stuff and made it into the world's first comedy club. Because before that, comedians could only perform in nightclubs and hotels and coffee shops down in the village, but there were no clubs that were dedicated just to comedy. And then in 1973, Rick Newman opened Catch a Rising Star. And so which was also an iconic place. And Richie Tinkin opened the comic strip in 1976. And he and Rick Newman used to help each other out. As opposed to being enemies and competition with each other, they used to work together. So if one club needed a comedian, they would send over a comedian that they had, and vice versa. And so I got to bring Rick Newman over to the comic strip to do his interview. And I got some great pictures of these two guys together, Rick and Richie Tinkin. And Richie Tinkin told Rick that he was his idol, that he wanted to fashion himself after Rick Newman. And that was a very special moment in comedy, and I was there to experience that. I've had several of those when I was working with Jerry Lewis to prepare for his Friars Roast. And I was the main writer for the Friars Roast for 12 years. So I got to work with Jerry Lewis, just the two of us alone in his hotel room. And while I was with him, he got a phone call that they discovered the Duchenne form of muscular dystrophy, and tears started rolling down his face. I I'll never forget that moment. Just the two of us to share that moment. And another moment that I like to talk about, I was sitting with Jeffrey Ross at the Just for Laughs festival, and we were having lunch, and a man came over to the table and told him that his film Patriot Act won this big award at the festival. And it was just he and I was just there to share that moment with him. Very special to be able to do something like that. Not that I had anything to do with it, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So, let me see what I was going to say. Um, well, hopefully, this is going to continue and people will sign in. I have to post about it, I guess, and let people know that I'll be doing this kind of a live stream. And I think I talked about having done a podcast at the comic strip. Richie Tinkin gave me permission. He once said to me, "Why aren't you doing a podcast?" And I was like, "I don't know. I need a special place. Everybody has a podcast." So I said to him, "I'll do a podcast if you let me do it from the stage of the comic strip, because that's a very iconic stage where Eddie Murphy performed and Seinfeld spent the first 4 years of his career, and all these huge stars that came out of that club, all on that stage." So he gave me permission, and I only got to do 3 shows. Richie was the first, and then I did 2 more shows, and then COVID hit, and everything got closed down, and the whole world was upside down. And I got COVID double pneumonia and wound up in the hospital, really, really, really sick. And I was just very lucky to pull through that. And that COVID thing went on so long, and then Richie passed away, and I never tried to do any more at the comic strip. It just felt weird. So I'm going to try and make this happen. I'm going to try and do this. Um, it would be great if there were viewers to ask me questions so I know what I want to talk about. But I can also do a verbal review of the comedy scene, like I do in my column. Like last month was Amy Poehler with her new show, the Swedish Death Cleaners, teaching people to unclutter their apartments so that the people who come after them won't have a horrible job. And it was a very interesting premiere that was held downtown. And I don't even remember my own column because I wasn't looking at it, but who performed at the City Winery. Eric Newman sold out the Gramercy Theater, so I did a whole special on that. And he's handled by Emilio Savone, who owns the New York Comedy Club. Now there's about 5 of them. I was not too long ago. They opened one in Stamford, Connecticut. I was there that night for the grand opening. Emilio makes sure to let me know whenever they're doing something special, and I always show up because I love to support people that are doing important things. And these days, after the last 3 years that we've all been through, we all need a good laugh. People need to laugh. That's why comedy is bigger than ever. And so again, I'm going to try and prepare something for each week that I do this. Today, this is just introductory, off the cuff, off the top of my head. Ever since I cured myself of stuttering, you can't shut me up, so I just talk. And by the way, in case you know anybody who stutters, tell them that there is a way to get better. I hate to use the word cure because I cured myself. I worked on myself, but there is definitely, if you can speak better when you're alone, which I realized one day that if I went into a room by myself, I could say every word that I thought was difficult for me to say, every word that I would stutter on. I would say it, and it was fine, which told me that the truth was that there was nothing wrong with me, because you can't have a disability based on your location. If a man has a true disability, he has it in every room of his house. You can't go into a room alone and close the door and walk perfectly. But if I could speak fine when I'm alone, then theoretically it means there's nothing wrong with me. So I took that information and I worked on myself for years. And as you can see, I no longer stutter. It's one of the most amazing things that I ever did for myself. And now, as an avocation, I work with stutterers all over the world online, and I teach them how not to stutter. Anyway, I'll be talking about all different kinds of things. Comedy Matters TV is an inside look at the comedy world. It takes you backstage to meet the comedians that you love in a very personal, intimate way, not like a journalist who never met them before, but as a friend, as somebody who knows them. So it's very casual and light, and you get a chance to hang out with them. You know, that's the essence of Comedy Matters TV. So for anyone who's watching this, I thank you. Um, you can subscribe, you can like and comment, and if you watched all the videos, you'll be old by the time you finish because there's 580 of them. Not, I think it's 582 with the two that I just uploaded that I did with Jim Gaffigan. So anyway, I think that's about it for today. We're almost at the 30-minute mark, and I hope this meant something to somebody. I don't know. It's very meaningful to me to even try this. And all these years I have YouTube, and I never did a YouTube live. I've been in them. I actually, when we were in Montreal, Nick Kroll and John Mulaney did I think it was a Facebook live, and posted it of me backstage with them. But I never did a YouTube live. So hopefully more people will hear this than me, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. I will post when the next one will come. They tell me it's good to do them on a regular basis. So the next one should be at least next Monday. All right, guys. Have a good evening. Stay well. Stay healthy. Keep laughing. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.